When we get our act together and COVID lets us, we'll be meeting in person and we'll be able to chat face to face, hopefully sometime this year. My name's Ed. I'm the new president of the Guild. I want to thank the board that was here before us, and more importantly, I want to thank Steve Poland for guiding the Guild for the last 3 years over some really difficult times. And I don't think we would have been in as good a shape as we are today without his guidance. So thank you, Steve. And I
It's
only
really
hope
about the whole
to,
board working together.
yeah, I only hope to do half of what you've done. So we've got some new people that have joined the board this year. Mike Sandman was visible a while ago. I don't know where he is now, but oh, there he is. Mike is our new membership director. He took over from Julie Boyles, who moved up to the vice president of membership. We've got Mike Bork. Mike, where are you? Borgo, who stepped in for Ken Fairfax, who has left the board. Ken is here to help us carry through on some board amendments that we'll deal with here in a moment, but Mike is going to be our secretary. We have a lot of people. Doug Drake has also stepped off the board, but is replaced by a very capable Gary Weaver as the education chair. And one of the things we're going to,
Time will tell.
one of the things, yeah, one of the things that we're going to try to do on a regular basis in these general meetings is take a little bit of time at some point and just go over and let each individual group talk a little bit about the sections that they are working in. And tonight we're going to hear from education because by far they are one of the most important parts of the Guild organization. I want to thank all of our members over the last year for their generous donations. In year 2021, the Guild received over $26,000 in donations. And a good chunk of that came in the last year towards the end of the year. Remembering that we are a 501c3. If you did not receive a letter from the treasurer or from the organization indicating that, acknowledging your donation for your taxes, please send an email to treasurer@guildoforegonwoodworkers.org, and we'll make sure that letter gets out to you accordingly. One of the things that we're going to be emphasizing and working on this year and the next couple of years is a bigger fundraising effort. We have big plans for the Guild to expand our operation, expand our space, expand our offerings, and that doesn't come cheaply, particularly when you start talking about moving into new facilities or outfitting existing facilities. And so we're going to try to build a fairly substantial capital campaign over the next several years. And it's going to start this year by trying to improve our presence in the community. So I would ask, as you are in and about the community, although it's more difficult these times, but as you're on other Zoom calls with people, please don't forget to mention the Guild. If we're in such a situation, we may decide that we want to establish a speakers bureau, get ourselves out there. So if any of you are so inclined to participate in activities like that, please let Tom know. Tom's kind of spearheading at this point some of our high-level capital campaign efforts, and we would certainly appreciate it. And I guess that sort of ties in with what this organization's all about. We're all volunteers here. Everybody that's on this call is a volunteer, and we wouldn't be able to do it without the number of volunteers that we have in the organization. And each year, or each month anyway, we try to recognize an individual member who has done something above and beyond. And I'm going to turn it over to Mike Sandman to recognize our Volunteer of the Month for January of 2022.
Yeah, thanks, Ed. Could I ask anybody who hasn't muted themselves if there's some sound in your background in your living room or in your office, please mute yourself. Our Volunteer of the Month is Holland Golick, and Holland has been a member for about 6 years. He has been very active with a lot of different parts of the guild. He helped us organize our birdhouse building events. He helped coordinate all of the parts that go into that. We build hundreds of birdhouses and then give them away to kids at events. And all those hundreds of pieces had to be tracked so we could keep. We knew we were bringing the right parts to give away to all the kids. So Holland kind of got his feet wet with that and has been volunteering for a lot of things, particularly in Project Build in the last several years. This year, actually, before COVID, we had made some arrangements to build 13 nightstands for a community, a shelter, a women family shelter. And we had some people volunteer. Phil volunteered to do the design and kind of champion the project. But with 13 different nightstands, and each nightstand having a dozen parts at least, we were having trouble where every time we came in the shop in the last year, we were reinventing, trying to figure out where all those parts were, what we needed to do with them to finally finish them. Holland took the job of organizing a spreadsheet so that he tracked every single nightstand, the condition of every single component of them. And Phil Scott and I got an email from him every Tuesday saying, this is the status of each of our nightstands. This is what I'm going to suggest we put our efforts into next week, tomorrow, so that the crew would come and we knew what we had to do to move things forward. That has gotten to the point now where we've delivered, with Holland's help, our first six nightstands that went to Raphael House. And in February, we'll be delivering 7 more and completing our obligation to this community service organization that's serving so many people that need them. One of the things that excited us was that when a person graduates from Raphael House, if she would like to, gets her own apartment, that's a graduation. When they get their own apartment, she can take our nightstand with her. Might be the first piece of furniture and probably the only piece of custom-made furniture that she owns in that apartment. So Holland, I just want to thank you for all of your dedication to the Guild. You've been a great example to the rest of us, and your organization abilities from a previous life have blossomed here at the Guild. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And is Holland here? Somebody's speaking and muted.
There's Holland.
Okay, so Holland, you were
unmute
muted
yourself.
during that acceptance speech.
Let's see. Oh, how about that?
There we go.
Yeah. It just came real close to, just being able to be real, not knowing what we were going to do next. And yeah, probably in my prior life, that's what I did, kind of organize things and track things with spreadsheets. And so it just became a natural. And once we got rolling with it, it felt, okay, we've got a purpose every Wednesday and we've got something to do. So
I don't know. So Holland, I don't know if you can see it, but I'm holding up the log that we'll get to you at some point. We've got a bunch of them to make. We're a little behind in the production.
Thank you, Ed.
we'll
Thank you.
get that to you sooner rather than later. So thank you very much, and well deserved. Well, and I got to tell you, what that whole effort on project build is incredible. The types of, if you look through the history of the types of things that they've done over the years, it's really heartwarming. So it's the kind of things that I think make this organization what they are.
Can I say
Ed?
too, Ed?
Sure,
Can I
Julie,
just
go ahead.
add in there? If you don't know Raphael House, it's one of the largest, if not the largest, domestic violence shelter in Oregon. It's in Beaverton. It's really a stellar project that we took on. I mean, every member, whether you contributed or not, should be really proud of the Guild. 13 nightstands for women that probably don't have a lot, and there's handmade and made with love, and a lot of people were involved, and Holland finally piloted it and took it down the track to the finish line. So it's really something that all of us should be really proud of contributing to.
One last thing was that what was really nice was as we got going again in the fall, new people started to show up that had never participated with Project Build, and they may have been a member a year or two or a brand new member, but I think we met at least a half a dozen to 10 new members in this process. Maybe they showed up once, maybe they showed up several times. It was good.
I just have to say real quickly, I was at the Guild one day when we had flooding in the annex, and all of a sudden Holland came roaring up on his white horse and jumped into the stream and saved all the little kittens that were drowning and brought them into the Guild shop to dry out. So it was love in action, and I just had to share that beautiful story.
Thank you. That's great. So in addition to the Volunteer of the Month, we also each year select one of our members who's gone above and beyond. And this year it was really no contest. When the board and part of a select group of the board kind of got together and kind of put our heads together, and we threw some candidates out there, it was not close. That's not to say that the others weren't deserving, but we had one individual this year who went above and beyond, and that's Abu. A group of us managed to show up on a Monday night when Abu is there at 3 o'clock in the afternoon and probably until 9 o'clock at night, organizing the shop maintenance effort. And we made the presentation to him, and I just have a short video that I'd like to show to the group of that evening and the presentation of that award to Abu. So I assume you guys can all see this. Can we?
Yep, we can see
Somebody
it.
tell me yes.
Yes,
I just
yes.
wanted to run through a list of things that Abu has been involved in just in this last year. He's been an integral part of the IT group. Understands the back end of the website and how to get data out of it in more ways than I know even how to count. He's obviously taken charge of and has done an outstanding job with shop maintenance. He's taken on the video editing responsibilities for many of the Zoom meetings that we've recorded. He's gone through and edited a number of those. He's the safety committee. He's taken that on and has taken that role on by himself. He's someone who never says no when a group of people come to him and say, hey, we need help doing something. Instead of like bringing it to a group and having us parse it out to other people, he just does it. I met him for the first time about 3 years ago when we were doing lunches, in-person lunches instead of the fake Zoom lunches that we're doing now. And he couldn't have been nicer in terms of offering up and chatting, and we had a great time. We took a course together with Teho Kwan, and in the midst of the course, as we were tracing out our parts, something happened to the bandsaw. And so Abu abandoned his project to go fix the bandsaw so the rest of us could finish our project. So that's just the kind of guy he is, and when we put this award out for nominations, it wasn't even close. So thank you very much. Anybody else? Words of wisdom?
Lou and I have had a lot of contact, and I've repeatedly, somewhat in jest, but in absolute seriousness, explained multiple times that I was sort of a dog at how skilled and intelligent he has been. But he's also become a friend, and I appreciate that, and I think a lot of people do too, because what we do is not just about woodworking, it's not just about managing an organization, it's about friendship. And who is a friend who we have occasionally commiserated together in regards to some of the frustrations and challenges of involving with your organization. But he's our Swiss Army knife, you know, been there and does so many things and does them so well. But some people always surface, you know, and are just a little bit above even the rest of us in terms of what they commit and what they provide. And Bruce fits that exactly. And you know, normally I try to say something, you know, that's sort of smart ass. Smart ass, but I don't think this is a smart ass moment. And I just want to to know, and I'm sure my comments reflect what many others are thinking, and that's that what you do is so very appreciated. And
I want to add that everybody knows that GOOW is a natural leader, but I'm going to tell you, he follows directions very well also. At the beginning of the year, we decided to watch our pennies because we didn't know what the pandemic was going to do. And I'm going to tell you, the GOOW is a great penny watcher.
It's 50 years of zero-based banking. So, approving this is someone yelled at this video for.
So thank you, Abu. We couldn't do it without you, so.
Thank you very much.
You have 3 more minutes.
No, thank you very much. There are a lot of volunteers that come in that you do not see that come to help from maintenance. And every time you walk into the shop and the equipment is working, it's thanks to all the people that show up every Monday night and things like that out there and help out. The people of the safety committee that help out in that particular space out there, and a very good board and a bunch of people to work with. In the whole process, I think you end up learning a lot more than you basically give in and things like that. So you get a lot more out of it than just what you put in there. So thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you, Abu.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna put my pitch out there for becoming a volunteer in this organization. No matter how little or you can contribute, it's going to be a help. There are literally hundreds of things to do on a weekly, monthly basis in this organization, and we couldn't do it without the help and dedication of the people who are the members of this organization who make it work. So thank you to Holland, thank you to Abu for our most recent recipients, but I look forward to presenting these awards each month as we go through the year to some new volunteer who may spring out of nowhere and become the woodworker of the year. You never know. We do have one quick bit of real business to conduct tonight. I've asked Ken Fairfax to join us. Ken was our secretary last year and helped shepherd this through, but we do have a bylaws change that we would like to present to the membership. The change is really nothing more than bringing the organization into compliance with some Oregon statutes that deal with nonprofits and how we deal with voting online like this, which is something we've been doing a lot of over the last 2 years now. Ken, I don't know if you want to say anything more about what we've got proposed. They've been posted. The proposals have been posted for several months now on the website and have been noticed in the weekly blast and newsletter.
I I'll just say for anybody who hasn't followed all the links to read the actual documents, there are essentially just two simple changes. One, the current guild bylaws say that a majority of board members voting can decide an emergency issue. Yeah, the Oregon law says you can't do that. If it's an emergency on short notice, it must be a majority of all board members, not those voting. So the change just makes us follow the law. Now, the other change actually helps us a little bit of flexibility. The current rules say that if an emergency comes up, like, you know, oh my God, the ceiling just fell in and we have to hire somebody to fix something, it takes a 7-day notice before the board can make that decision. The Oregon rules say 48 hours, you can do it. And so this rule change just says we can follow the 48-hour rule. And that's it. It's pretty simple. It's just bringing us up to date with the current state of reality.
So with that, what's required is a majority of the members present at our general meeting to vote in the affirmative for these proposed rule changes. And with that, I'll entertain a motion from someone to adopt the bylaw changes.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion or are there any questions from any members about what we're doing? All right, if you could just kind of wave at yourself in the camera. If you're in favor, I'd appreciate it. Thank you, everybody. I think that motion passed. So before we get on to our real presentation this evening, one of the things I want to make sure that our members know is a little bit about all the different aspects and nooks and crannies of the guild. And we've got a lot of different things going on, and I'm still learning things about what we do and where we do them and when we do them and why we do them. I asked Gary Weber tonight, who is our education chair and has been in the guild and leadership for a long time, to talk tonight a little bit about the education group, what it is they do, some of their offerings, and how you can help them going forward. So with that, Gary, remember we do have a real program following you, so just keep that in mind.
I'd rather hear about this since it's my first meeting. So happy
You're
to
muted.
listen.
You're muted, Gary. Still muted.
Probably
go.
better that I was muted.
All those in favor?
That was not a motion. That was not a
I'm
motion.
sorry.
I'm going to try to be short because I want to hear Autumn, but I also want to say that I think I've got one of the best leadership positions in the guild. Ed and I have something in common. We're both stepping into some big boots that were worn by others before us and having to learn a lot on the fly. And so I'm going to just give you, and I'm learning more than I can, which creates a problem. So I'm just going to give you kind of a quick overview, if I can, of what's really a fairly large effort. The Guild Education Program really focuses on two primary areas. We do shop and machine safety training, and that's in conjunction with the safety committee. We look at the safety committee to help give us the guidance in terms of the content, and then we take care of the scheduling and provide the trainers and instructors for that. And that's everything from the introduction to the guild with basic guild safety environment to specific safety training on all of the tools that are in there, including our core tools and advanced tools. And to get access to use the shop, you do have to be certified with our core tools. So there's a very well thought out process for you getting from walking in the front door to getting to the point where you can actually use those tools safely. Once you use the tools safely, then our focus is on trying to provide you with classes on various aspects of woodworking. And in doing that, we recognize that everybody comes in with different levels of experience, and we sort of recognize that people are somewhere between beginners or basic woodworkers to intermediate to advanced. And when you have nearly 1,000 members, you can bet that you have a lot of variation in terms of what skill levels they bring. And we also take a look at that when we try to design classes to try to make sure that we are matching up the content of classes with the capability of the folks that may be taking those classes. We try to provide the education with sort of 3 different approaches. Sort of the bottom level is using some introductory lecture and demo, and then we focus on skills and techniques, and finally on special projects. We're coming out of the ashes, 2 years of virtually no classes because of the pandemic. So we're building. This is a ramp-up year for this. It's a building year, and we're starting out, and we expect to see more classes every month. Just to give you an idea, some examples of classes that we have had in the past that you'll see a lot of include the milling of rough lumber, measuring and marking in woodworking, sharpening of chisels and plane irons, introduction to hand tools, making boxes and cutting boards, projects in class tables, classes in tables and other furniture, project classes on holiday gift items, veneering, and etc. So there's a wide range that you'll find. In the past, we've had up to 150 training sessions and classes a year. So you're going to have a full range of options as we're able to get ourselves back elevated to the area that we want to be at, to the level. We also do something which I think is exceptional. We have what's called a Masters Series, and we bring in 2 to 3 international masters every year to put on workshops. And for those of you that are familiar with the woodworking world, we've had masters come in, including Michael Fortune, Doug Stowe, Mike Pekovich, Mary May, Garrett Hack, Christopher Schwartz, Michael Dresner, just to give you some examples. So this is really top billing kind of educational opportunities from really the best in the business. We also have some interest groups, some special interest groups. Historically, we've had those in the area of hand tools. We've had them in the area of CNC. We have a women's SIG, which focuses mostly on providing education to women coming into the woodworking world. And we're working on CNC. We also have one coming up that is going to be sort of a short term to get an interest feel for the area of leather and woodworking. And Tim Moore, who is, I think, here, is going to be heading that up. So that's kind of a quick overview. We have over 50 volunteers in education that are committed to trying to make this all work. We need more. We need instructors. We need class coordinators. We need helpers. There are all kinds of roles. And if you're interested in volunteering, please contact me. You can do that through education.chair, Guild of Oregon Woodworkers.org. You can contact Doug Drake. My personal, Gary Weber, my personal email with the Guild is available. Give me a call, get a hold of me, give me your suggestions, thoughts, questions, and especially if you want to volunteer, we'll find a way to use you. Sorry, Ed, I couldn't make it any shorter than that.
No, that was great, Gary. And again, I just encourage everybody, it's a great way to get your foot in the door and become part of the organization, become a class assistant or become, an assistant in a class that's being taught, help them get it organized. And, it's terrific. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Joe Wheaton. Joe, I saw you somewhere. Somebody needs to then spotlight our speaker when we get to that point. But Joe's our program chair and has been dutifully gathering together presenters for us, and I think has some mapped out for the coming months. Thank you, Joe.
Yeah.
And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Joe.
Okay, well, thanks a lot. By the way, I think it was Ken Fairfax who earlier said that he said something that sounded really interesting for a presentation. So Ken, I've private chatted you, and so go take a look at the chat and see if you might want to get back and do a presentation.
You're on for June, Ken.
You're on for June. There you go. This is my wife who wanted to sit in on this presentation. Several months ago, Julie Niemeyer, one of our members, sent me a message saying I think you'd find this woman really interesting. Get in touch with her, and I think she'd be a great presenter. And over the last few months, I have done that, and it's been a real pleasure to meet Autumn Peterson. And it just so happens that in that meantime, in the time that since Julie had recommended Autumn, my wife and I have decided to build a timber frame pavilion in the backyard, and Autumn's specialty is timber frame finishes, and it just has worked out really great. So I think this is going to be a real interesting presentation. I've tried some of her finishes. They're well, I'll let her tell you, but they're naturally based using a citrus solvent, and so they smell really good in the house if you're refinishing parts of the timbers in the back room. So I would highly recommend them. Autumn, I think I'm going to probably let you do your own kind of introduction. That's kind of my background and why you're here. So if you could give us just a little bit of background about yourself and your company, and then then if you can share your screen, and
Sure.
I'd love to see your presentation.
Great. Thank you so much, Joe. I've just enjoyed being on this call and meeting you all. I just moved back to Corvallis from rural Utah right before COVID, so I haven't had much opportunity to meet new folks. So this is really exciting, and I'm just absolutely blown away with all that you all do. I'm very passionate about education, continuing education in any of the trades, but particularly I love wood. So woodworking, timber framing, lots of hand tool work is a passion of mine. So I'm just so excited to join in. I'm a little out of town, so I can't show up too much. Is somebody having a question? You guys might want to mute. I can't tell if you're wanting to talk to me or.
No, I'm just saying, if whoever one of our hosts, if we can just mute everybody, and then Autumn, maybe unmute yourself.
Sure.
That way we can get rid of the background noise. Thank you. Sorry, Autumn.
Yeah, no problem. I'm used to this. Aren't we all used to Zoom world? So my background, in my 20s, I got out of college and figured out that I didn't really know how to use power tools. I was fixing up an old 1700s old schoolhouse in Mississippi. And anyway, just started learning how to make things and went into furniture school at Penland in North Carolina. And from that, and at the same time, got introduced to timber framing. So at that point, in furniture school, you kind of do all the things that your teachers tell you to do, and you use all the finishes that they tell you to use. And I found that, in the spray booth, in the finishing booth, I was getting really sick, and I basically couldn't go to class anymore. So what I came out of that is, if I was going to stay in woodworking, what could I use that I didn't feel like was killing me? And really, I didn't create something new. I just went back in time to look at what people have been using before varathane and the urethane world, and all these more modern finishes that are really helpful and handy, but don't have the track record of kind of the old school natural oils that people have been using. And what I discovered is even the newer natural oils like linseed oil and tung oil that you buy in the hardware store are pretty low quality. If a lot of tung oil finishes don't even have tung oil in them anymore. So I, came into it the hard way, fixing up old buildings, making all the mistakes, using all the wrong things. And I basically, just got into making a fancy boat soup that's out of really pure ingredients, and kind of the grandpa recipe, but just tweaked it over the years to really apply it to big wood. So when I got into timber framing, you can't really finish big timbers with your standard can of varathane or anything with a dryer in it that's going to quickly dry before you get to the end of the 20-foot beam. So those finishes really needed to be something that would penetrate, wouldn't quick dry because you're trying to get through an 8x8 or an 8x10. And so you want it to continue to soak in, yet remain breathable. So anyway, that's kind of really quickly how I got into making finishes. I definitely didn't expect to start a business making wood finishes. I just started making them for me and then my friends. And then I moved out to rural Oregon and figured, well, I'll just make it and maybe a few people want to buy it while I have my homestead and my farm. So it kind of took over my life, and it's definitely full time. And I'm just busy making wood finish all day, every day. And it's grown quite a bit. I'm going to share screen here. I've also on the board of directors for the Timber Framers Guild. My initial training was in the shop as a timber framer and then got into design. And I also realized I'm not good at being in front of the computer all day. So I basically at that point left timber framing to do the wood finishes full time. Let's see. Okay, there's my intro. So I'm in Corvallis now. I've had this business. I started it out in Reedsport in a cow barn on the Smith River. And then since had moved it to Harlan, which is west of Corvallis. And then I moved back to where my family's from in Boulder, Utah. And then came back to Oregon, like I said, right before COVID. So not a very sexy picture, some cans of what I make. So I make finishes for really all different applications. A lot of timber framers use it, but also a lot of woodworkers who want a natural penetrating oil wood finish without any additives. That's still food safe. It still remains breathable. And that's kind of what I do. I do make some pigmented things, but mainly, just from my background, I want walnut to look like walnut. I want pine to look like pine. I like the truth of the matter of what wood you're using. So my focus is on the natural finishes. This is one of my clients, Trillium Dell Timber Frames. Again, I just got sucked into, it's hard to resist furniture at this scale. Just walking up to something like this has always been a marvel to me. And I've just got a passion to learn how to do this. And what I love about timber framing is you can't just do it yourself. You need a community around you to help put these together. And it's just fun. So that's part of being part of a guild, is being part of a community, pulling these things off. So these are just a few blingy photos of some of my clients who do really custom work. This is from Idaho, Colin Begg's design build. They're up in Sandpoint, Idaho, I believe. So I have people all over the country that order stuff from me. This is kind of typical tongue and groove timber frame. It can be a bit busy, but these are some of the people that I'm serving at this point. So that's again the same house that I showed you before, Sandpoint, Idaho, all custom, everything in that house, outside, inside, floors, walls, timbers has my product on it, and it's aging very well. Some more pretty timber frames. One up in BC, a wedding venue. Apparently that's quite the thing these days. Everyone's building wedding barns. So that's been keeping me busy. And like I said, I don't pre-mix a lot of pigments into my products, but I do carry pigments that you can add. And these are oxide pigments that people use, to get classic effects. And the house on the left is down in Southern Oregon near Ashland, which I just love. Gorgeous house. So you can add pigments. Again, if you have an oil base, you can really have a lot of flexibility in what you want to do with it. So you have full control over, your thickness, how thin you need to go onto whatever species of wood you're working with, how you want to tint it. So really having a solid base and then adding the little components that you want to tweak, it just gives you the most flexibility depending on your project. And I also have lots of people who are doing bowls and butcher blocks and chairs and tools. And so you can kind of use it anywhere. And really it's depending on your finishing technique, you can kind of do the lazy method, which is just put oil on the wood and walk away, or you can do lots of fancy French polishing, sanding in between, burnishing, and you can get something that looks like these guys. So I had this guitar maker kind of go crazy on using my finishes on his guitars, and I was impressed. I've never stuck with finishing something to this level with a natural oil finish. So I just wanted to show you those because they were pretty wow. So you can get a lot of versatility with oils without having to strip and sand and redo. So I mean, part of, I make wood finishes, it's a business, but really my passion is working with others in particularly building community through craft. And like I said, I've been on the board for the Timber Framers Guild probably for the last 5 years. This is my last year on the board. And we put together, we do conferences, we do lots of member services, but our main thing that we do are projects for communities. And usually we work with other nonprofit organizations, and we come into the community, we design a pavilion or a structure or a small pavilion or a large pavilion, and we run it as a workshop. So we bring in volunteers from all over the country. We come in and we teach people of all levels how to cut, lay out the timber frame, and then we put it up. So these workshops can range from a week to 2 weeks, depending on the project. We haven't been able to do a lot with COVID, but we did do one this fall, the Independence, Virginia Farmers Market Pavilion in Independence, Virginia. And the ones we've been doing in the Northwest lately have all been for Snohomish County. We just completed the Oso landslide memorial portal. So they have all these trail systems in Snohomish County, and they're all timber frames and little pavilions. So that's been really fun to get up there and just be out in this gorgeous Cascades, building little timber frames that are gonna, people are gonna enjoy. So so many projects. I can't even, we've been at it for 25 plus years. There's a range of skills, a range of abilities, but there's just nothing quite like showing up with your friends every day, cutting a big building and then putting it up together. It's quite the feat. And I'd love to be doing some of that here too. So if you guys want to do a small pavilion, let's do it. One of the organizations that I've been working with personally and with the Guild is the Girls Build, which is out of Portland. And they focus on woodworking and other sorts of trades training for young girls. And that was really fun. We had a Timber Framers Guild conference up at Timberline a couple of years ago. And so I got to bring the Girls Build group into our group, and we ran this workshop up there while we were having our conference. And it was pretty fun because everybody at the conference just wanted to hang out with us and do what we were doing. But it was great to merge the two. And that's pretty much it.
Autumn, I have a question from one of our folks here.
Oh, yeah.
How are these finishes typically applied? Do you?
You can brush them on. You can use a brush. You can use a rag, depending on what you're doing. If you're doing, siding or a deck or a big beams, you could use a sprayer. I wouldn't recommend using a sprayer in your house. Like Joe
Right.
said, the citrus oil that I use is pretty intense. And so it's best to do that outside, but you can use any method really for applying is easy. It's a very, very easy, forgiving finish to work with.
Mhm.
So it really lends itself to however you want to get it on there. You get it on there, rub it in, buff it in. You just want to wipe off the excess, and you put as much in as the wood will absorb. So you really just, you let the wood tell you what it wants to do. If you put a lot of oil on and let it sit there, it's going to absorb at different rates depending on the grain, depending on the knots. The knots are going to resist a lot of oil because they're already full of resins and oils. So it's really forgiving, but it allows you to connect with the material that you're working with. Oh, and thanks for posting the Timber Framers Guild links.
Yeah. What kind of surface prep do you need to do? I know what I've been doing on the timber I've been doing is I actually bought a power planer, which really makes short work of smoothing down the tops,
Yes.
and then sand them, and then we apply the finish onto the timbers.
Yeah.
I hope I'm doing it right.
I mean, a different prep for different uses. For a tabletop for your dining room, you're going to want to sand it down to the level of smoothness that you want to achieve, and then you can start building coats onto that. And the joy of working with natural oils without dryers added is you have plenty of time to get across the surface. You can, it blends in with it, you're not trying to match, an edge paint stroke of a urethane that's, you didn't get it the other side of the table before it started drying. So you have plenty of time to work with it, rub it in, wipe it off, let it sit, do it again. It's very, very easy that way.
How about old structures? I mean, I for example, have a 70-year-old barn that I don't think has had anything ever applied to it.
You don't have to. I mean, of course I sell wood finish, but people come to me all the time, and it's a lot of work. It's either better to use oil or not use anything at all. I mean, in traditional England, where timber framing started, they didn't use anything on the timbers, especially outside, because really you want it to breathe as much as possible. The oils do help reduce the checking. They help kind of minimize the moisture exchange. So it really depends on, 70-year-old barn, just let it keep being as long as it's protected.
I'm talking about the exterior siding is just.
The siding.
It's pretty well weathered, but I really don't want to like reshingle it or do anything. And I've toyed with the idea of trying to preserve it some way. Are your products suitable for that?
Yeah, I have an exterior product that has a mildewcide, fungicide, and a UV blocker, and you can definitely use that. Again, for any wood that's outside that's getting weather, you've got to have something breathable. Most finishes out there are a film forming coat, and those actually trap moisture and promote mildew. And you basically have to strip the whole thing and redo it, which is just laborious. So again, you want, putting something on that's naturally oil-based is a much better in the field in the long run for old structures, historic structures, new structures. It ages better. And then as it starts to age and as you start seeing deterioration from UV or mildew, you just add more coats instead of, again, stripping, sanding. You just keep it hydrated, and it really can stave off a lot of deterioration.
We saw a couple of barns that one was green, one was red. So they had refinished it, and that was with the pigmented stuff then, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and the typical barn finish is linseed, basically linseed oil with a pigment added, so an oxide pigment, so white oxide or the iron oxide. I mean, you can make it yourself. And it's a very, very typical, long lasting treatment for a barn that's inexpensive also.
Gotcha. Where somebody had asked, where can we buy your products, especially locally?
Well, I'm making a custom blend for the joinery, the Portland-based furniture store. So I've been making a product for them. It has my label with their logo on it. They wanted dryers added, so they do have dryers added to theirs because that's easier for them in the shop for their production. So you can get it there. I'm also making trips to Portland once a week because I'm doing a historic preservation work up in Portland at least once a week. So I can bring it. I am down in Corvallis. You can come by the shop if you would like. I would love to see you. Or I can ship it. So mostly I'm direct sales. I'm a small company, and so I don't have a huge distributorship, but I am looking for a place in Portland for someone to carry it. I do have a lot of customers up in Portland, so I'd love to find a good partnership up there. Relationships are important to me, so I'm not ever going to be in Home Depot. So smaller stores, people who get wood and people who get handmade and natural things.
I got a question here that says, do you think the finish can be used on pressure treated plywood as an added protection and color finish for something that is out in the weather a lot?
Yeah, you can. I mean, the thing with plywood is like any veneer, you only have as much wood as the thickness of your veneer, right? So once you hit the glue line, you're not going to get anything penetrating between the glue line layers. So in that regard, it's still helpful on the surface. It won't do the crack and peel film forming coat, but you'd have to do it more often. And it being pressure treated, you're pretty covered. But it wouldn't hurt at all to have a coat of that on there just to keep the surface layer hydrated.
And we've been talking about timber frames, but obviously the joinery and some of the guitar work are all interior, woodworking projects, and so your products can be used just the same with them, obviously.
Absolutely, yes. I have a lot of furniture folks. Anything from siding to decks. I've got some, beard guys who make beard combs. I've got some Japanese wood people who are making fancy high heels for LA models. Like, it's across the board what people, if you can make it out of wood, you can use natural oils on it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I was actually experimenting with a couple of things you gave me. You gave me one that was a finish with a wax in it. And And I wanted to see if I could use it to skip a couple steps. So I've applied it to some walnut and then just buffed it out, and it seemed to work real well, so. Yeah,
it's the perfect finish to cheat on. So it looks like you just done a ton of work, and really you just buffed in one coat of the wax. And so that's one of my lazy ways of finishing now. It's like I could spend weeks, or I could just rub and buff a coat of this wax on and it looks fabulous. I do make an end grain sealer. So for any green wood that you're working with, even especially for turning bowls, it does reduce, the cracking and checking that happens when you're turning green wood. So, so I do make an end grain sealer that doesn't stain. So if, usually the stuff that you buy at the store is red or yellow, and, if you're going to see it, it's going to stain at some point. So I do make a buffing wax, which is also called the end grain sealer.
Gotcha.
And I'm going to post my email in the chat here. Okay, and if any of you guys want samples, just send me an email and I'll send them up to you if you want to play with them. I do that a lot. So
yeah, and if you're looking at the chat, you may see this question from Bill Tainter. In Toyville, they use they use mineral oil a lot, but it sounds like this might be an option for them too. Then,
yeah, mineral oil. That's a great. A lot of people for butcher blocks use mineral oil, and mineral oil doesn't really do much. It's a petroleum-based oil. It's not a hardening oil. So yes, it's kind of keeping something slick on the surface, but it's not oxidizing into a hard finish. So there's really few oils that are hardening, that dry to hard. And that would be walnut oil, linseed oil, tung oil, and hemp oil. And actually castor oil sometimes if you polymerize it. So there's, and you want your oils to harden. When you're adding hardness to the wood, so for long-term preservation, that's ideal. And also on a cutting board, you don't want to be putting oils that don't harden because they oxidize and they can become toxic for ingestion. So the mineral oil, I mean, it's safe. It's just not doing very much. But yeah, I make a product that I call the beeswax oil. It has 0 VOCs. It's all food safe, but the oils are hardening. So it's linseed and tung oil, and then beeswax. So
And can a kid chew on it?
What's that?
Can a kid chew on it?
Yeah. But even you can buy walnut oil from the salad dressing aisle at the grocery store and use that as well. It's handy, it's food, it's already food, and it's readily available, and it's a hardening oil. So if you make any change, yes, move from mineral oil to at least walnut oil or some other natural hardening oils. It just lasts a lot longer. Yeah.
I've got a question here from Lynn. Do you see that one?
Yeah, I'm trying to catch up on these. Ipe deck. Yes. Used for eating oil spills. Okay, so yeah, Ipe's a tricky one. It's such a dense wood. You definitely want a thin, if you're going to use oils, you want the thinnest possible oils with a mildew-cide added. The mildew sides that you can buy and add are really only good for 2 years. So you need to, here in this climate, we have to stay ahead of the fungus, mildews, molds, algae. So that's our biggest threat here. And that's kind of a application once a year to really stay ahead of it. So the oils may last for longer, but the mildew side, you have to kind of keep refreshing that at least every year. 2 years. 5 years if you're lazy like me. When I get around to it, when it's too mossy. I'm also from Utah, so I'm kind of getting used to the moss growing on everything again.
Yeah. So what are your oils mainly made of? I mean, like what's
Yeah, 5 base ingredients, and that's a pure raw linseed oil that comes from the Midwest, from flax. People have been using that for thousands of years. Pure tung oil, which is a nut oil. That's also been an oil that's been used for thousands of years. The main industry of that comes from China right now, but we had a huge industry in the south of the country for many, many years. And then I use pine rosin and citrus oil, which I use as the solvent, and then beeswax. So each of them has their own job, and working together, they really provide a great finish that lasts a pretty long time, depending on what you're using it on.
And the linseed and tung oils will harden then? Is that?
Yes, they're both hardening. And why I like to use both of them, you can use either one, but the tung oil is actually dries to a harder oil, and linseed oil soaks in deeper. So you get a harder oil with the tung oil, soaking in deeper with the linseed oil. So I think both of them, especially for big timbers, is ideal. And then pine rosin is a hardening agent, also adds hardness. I'm kind of trying to mimic a little bit of what Knotwood does, which is rich in oils and resins, sap.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of.
Go ahead. Yeah.
No, go ahead.
Well, when you I have a question about whether what's the difference between raw and boiled linseed oil?
Yeah, I just saw that one. That's common. So traditionally, when you would press your flax oil, you would technically boil it. So you would cook it for over long periods of time, which is called polymerizing. And that's basically turning fatty acid chain from a short chain to a long thread. And that really adds in elasticity of the finish, a smoother finish. So, and the way that they used to do it worked really, really well. What they do now, they don't treat it that way anymore. They just add naphtha and dryers and call it boiled. And I discovered, after ruining an 1860s old general store in Western North Carolina by using cheap oil, linseed oil at the store, it was a nightmare trying to do a floor with that. It dries super quick. It's really yellow and highly toxic. So traditionally, it was a fantastic finish. What you're getting now at the hardware store is really poor. It's toxic and it looks terrible and doesn't age well. So it's, you can do your own. So if you get a pure raw linseed oil, you can cook it yourself, and you would just want to put it on a double boiler. You can heat it up to 250 degrees, but for home use, somewhere between 165, 175.
I can't imagine boiling linseed oil, but
double boiler or a slow cooker.
All right. Yeah. I have heard that what you said about tongue oil, that if you just go to Home Depot and pick up a can of tongue oil, it may not even be tongue oil at all. But
it's often not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I mean, it's when you have I'm a ingredient reader. So with food, with what's in everything, I like to know how things work, what's making what work, what's in it. So all of those ingredients, what's naphtha? Oh, what's this? What, I read all that. So, and I just discovered that it's pretty nasty stuff that's in there.
Right. So
Autumn, do you have a chemistry background?
I don't. No, my background is in woodworking, furniture, historic restoration, timber framing, and design. So no, but I just make things. I love to cook and garden, and I just experiment. And really, I didn't invent something new. This is something that's been around. I've just tweaked it with what materials you can get now. What's clean, a cleaner solvent, which is a citrus solvent versus turpentine or mineral spirits. So it's really, I've just been tweaking it for a long time and experimenting in the field. So I know just enough chemistry to be dangerous.
Gotcha. Well, I'm sure that somewhere in our membership, there's a chemist or 5, because every once in a while I'll be in one of these Zooms and somebody will say, "Oh, that's very easy to figure out," and they'll give you the mathematical formula. It's like, oh, well, that's helpful. Anyway,
yes.
Yeah.
I know my realm, and
right.
I know enough to do what I need to do and to experiment and to do more things, but I definitely don't have a PhD in chemistry. I'm a mechanical kind of person. So these are all, yes, there are some chemical processes with it, but it's mainly mechanical, heating, mixing, blending, how you're blending as it cools. It's really just, a craft process versus a Bunsen burner and test tube situation.
And I've been to your place down in Corvallis, and you buy the raw materials and then make everything there. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm pretty low tech in how I make it. I'm getting so busy, I need to scale up, but I make everything in 55-gallon stainless steel drums with drum heaters and super hog with a fancy blade on it. So it's, this is not like big machines, and it's pretty small scale. So
how many members are in your timber frame organization? And is it nationwide or?
Yeah, global. We're global, and I think you guys are beating us in membership just for the Oregon woodworkers. So we need to have another conversation about some guild membership kinds of things. We have about 1,500 members, and that's nationally, and Canada and some folks in Europe. So it's pretty niche-y. Timber framing, it's pretty small group.
Did you know that Julie, I said it earlier, that Julie Niemeyer is one of our members, recommended you. How did you know her? Was that
I
through
met
Tim?
Julie and got to see her beautiful house and awesome shop that was under construction. Can't wait to see that. A friend of mine who is a guild member and one of my worked for a company that I supplied a lot of wood finishes for, Mike Westgard. I was in Portland and dropping off an order for him at Julie's house. And so that's how I got to meet Julie.
Okay.
Yeah, through Mike and through someone she hired.
Great. Are there any more questions for Autumn, or do we have any kind of thing would you like, let's hear any questions, but otherwise, if you'd like to, if there's anything you want to say as a wrap up, that, I think you've covered a lot of stuff, so.
It's, I just try to keep it basic. I'm not sure what you would want to know. I mean, there's lots of realms we can talk about finishes, what does what, that might be something to do in the shop, just comparing and contrasting different types of finishes, where you would use a poly, where you would use this and that, and then kind of how to work with them. And then where you would use oils and maybe where you wouldn't. And places that you probably wouldn't is lots of veneer work. So cabinets with veneer do better with film forming coats. And a lot of woodworkers have their special sauce. They find the thing that they use and they stick with it. And so I honor that. But I'm just here to help, and you guys can reach out to me anytime. And I look forward to coming up to the shop sometime and, I don't know, making something.
Yeah, I see something. I think that this could definitely, I think that'd be real fun. And I'm just going to start experimenting with your stuff and, picking up some more products and trying new things. But I love the wax finish today, because I was thinking, wow, this is kind of a one-step process here. So,
yeah.
All right. Well,
I've got a couple other questions looks like popped up. Exotic woods. Again, a lot of the exotic woods tend to be pretty dense grain. In that case, the denser the grain, the thinner the finish, especially for penetrating finishes. So I make a range of thickness. So I have a concentrated oil, which you would want to thin out with more solvent to do anything really tight grained. And then the original finish for what I make is thinned enough to do really well on the denser woods. Osmo, how it compares to Osmo, it is similar. It is like Osmo in some ways. I don't add dryers, and they have some different ingredients that I don't. But it has a similar feel to Osmo. I do have a little more of the citrus solvent in it, so it soaks in and is a little easier to work with than Osmo.
Can you use others? I mean, do you sell the citrus solvent too? Where do I get this? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I do sell that. That's hard to get these days. I've been doing this for 14 years, and when I first started, the citrus solvent was cheap and nobody was using it, and now everyone's using it. It's in everything from cleaner to hand soap to lip gloss. It's getting harder to get, but it's definitely the cleanest solvent. It's basically when you peel an orange, that little white spritz that comes off. It's called dilimonene is the chemical name, and it's a citrus terpene. So it works similar like mineral spirits or turpentine. Turpentine would be the next natural solvent that you can buy at the store. It smells nasty, but it is actually is pretty natural.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay.
Autumn, thank you very much. I think you probably will have some inquiries from the crowd today, and we're going to definitely keep your information around. One of our members suggested maybe getting together with one of our special interest groups on finishing and talking to them a little bit more in depth. So
yeah,
we may be in touch from that perspective. So
yeah, definitely. And we can make some, if you guys want to get super old school, we can go make some old school wood finish.
Wow. Good.
Depends how nerdy you want to get.
Yeah. Well, I think we'll be back to you. You've got the education chair here and the president, and so I think you'll hear from us again, I would wager.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
Very good. Thank you, Autumn.
Thank you
Thank
very
you, guys.
much. Yeah.
Very, very good. Any other last bits of information from the assembled crowd here tonight?
I do want to say that next month we hopefully are going to hear from Ruth Warmington on Kamiko. And I've been trying to get Ruth to do this, and there's always been something come up. But Ruth is in my opinion, our resident expert on Kamiko. And I've been interested in it since I first heard about it through Project Build at one of our Zooms. And then I took Mike Pekovich's class. But I know that I also went in and saw a presentation now, this must have been back in the fall, from Ruth to the Women's SIG. And I am really looking forward to having her do her thing on Kamiko, because she's been doing it for quite a while. And certainly in my opinion, she's our resident expert at the Guild. So
Gary?
that's next.
Gary,
Yeah, I just want to add real briefly to what Joe was just talking about. We're just in education. We're just getting into Kamiko, and in fact, Ruth, their first class called Coasting into Kamiko or Kumiko, I'm never quite sure how to say it, this past month. So watch for those. My hope is that she'll be doing that again, and well, depending on interest levels, we may get into it in a little more depth. So that's great. I'm glad to hear that that's going to be the subject, Joe. I think it's a great choice.
Yeah, good deal. All right. Thank you.
and there's rumors that Mary may be available for a presentation. So
Whoa, get back to me on that.
yeah, talk to who's our carving SIG?
So, Larry.
Larry Wade.
Larry
Yep.
Wade. Okay.
All right, everybody, thank you very much. Thank you for all your contributions. Thank you for all your help. Keep giving it to us. We need it. Autumn, thank you for a great presentation. Steve, thanks for 3 great years. Don't be a stranger. We will see you next month.
Nice job tonight, Ed. You're doing good.
Yeah. All right. Thanks a
Thank
lot.
you,
Thanks,
everybody.
Autumn.
Thank you, guys.
Bye-bye.
This was fun.